Today we're going to be making beautiful, decadent, rich, vegan and dairy-free truffles. Not only are we making truffles, I'm going to show you how to make 4 different types. So we're going to start off with making a beautiful ginger one that has a lovely coating of chocolate on the outside, a raisin pistachio one that has pops of colour and beautiful hints of rose in it, a classic chocolate and hazelnut combination, and then lastly I'll be making a rum and raisin one, which is my favourite. Being minimalists, we always love to give people edible presents. These truffles make a great Christmas present or a birthday gift. So typically when you're making a truffle, you're actually making a really thick ganache. You will find that ganache is based off thickened cream, chocolate, and butter sometimes is also included, but we're going to be using coconut milk today. Now, don't worry, we're not going to compromise on flavour at all, and you won't taste the coconut in it too. We're going to kick it off by making the ginger one. So I normally buy larger chunks of chocolate like this in my bulk store just down the road. You can use chocolate chips as well. Just make sure that the cacao butter component of it is quite high, which will actually help to set it in the fridge. I'm going to start off with doing 150 grams of chocolate. So I normally chop it up into smaller pieces. And as I said, if you've got smaller chunks already, you can just pop those straight in. So just weigh that out. Pop in 7 tablespoons of coconut milk into a little saucepan to heat it up on the stove. Now you just want to bring that to a gentle simmer, not a boil. I normally put that on first and then chop up the chocolate while I wait for it to come to a simmer. Just take it off the heat and pour it over the chocolate. This chocolate's been sitting there for 4 minutes, so now we're just going to give it a stir and incorporate the coconut milk in with the chocolate. See how it's nice and melted? If you find that at the end you still have some chocolate lumps in there, just pop it over a double boiler on the stove and melt it that way, so that'll get out any of the last bits of lumps that you have, but not for long. We're just going to sprinkle in half a teaspoon of ginger powder and give that a really good stir, just making sure that if there were any clumps of ginger powder that you break those up before you mix it in. And it's not going to be too strong. If you really like a good ginger hit, you can add a little bit more, but we're also going to be adding in the centre, once it sets, some crystallized ginger. Pop this into the fridge to set for a couple of hours. Now that's ready to go. Before we start rolling it in with the crystallized ginger, I'm just going to chop up some chocolate to melt over a double boiler so that we can coat the truffles in dark chocolate. So I normally buy bigger chunks of chocolate, as I explained at the beginning, but you can use buttons as well if you prefer. We need about 150 grams of chocolate for this. And if you have any left over, I like to actually have a little bit more so that it's easier to coat the truffles. And then after that, what I normally do is use it for my thick Italian hot chocolate to use up the rest, which I'll link for you in the description below. It's delicious. So I've just got a little bit of water at the bottom of this small saucepan, and that'll just come to a gentle simmer, and we'll just pop the chocolate over the top. You don't want it to boil because that can potentially burn the chocolate. So we'll just let that do its thing for a couple of minutes and give it a stir until it's completely melted. Once the chocolate's almost completely melted, just remove it off the heat or turn your stove off and continue stirring, and it'll completely melt, and then we're ready to roll our truffles. So we'll just take about a tablespoon's worth of the ganache. It'll be quite firm, but we want it to be as hard as possible so that it doesn't stick and melt in our hands. We're going to put about half of a small piece of crystallized ginger, which you can just buy at any local supermarket. It's just ginger and sugar. And then roll our little ball. And we're going to drop this into our melted chocolate. Now, it's going to get a little bit messy. We're going to use 2 forks to roll it around until it's completely coated. Lift it up with one, brush it on the sides just to remove any excess chocolate and pop it on our parchment paper. So just shuffle it under. Now we're just going to continue this process until we've used up all of the ganache. Now it should make about 10 truffles. It does get a bit messy, but trust me, it will be worth it. Now if you find that the ganache starts to dissolve a little bit too much in your hands, just pop it back in the fridge for about 10-15 minutes and it'll firm up just enough for you to be able to handle it a little bit easier. Just let it slide off naturally onto the parchment. Once you've done all 10 truffles, they just need to go into the fridge for about 20 to 30 minutes until the outer chocolate is completely hard. I wanted to show you how the chocolate varies if you leave it on the heat for too long. So these ones at the front here, they're nice and smooth. So you can see this one's got a beautiful shiny outside. But as we continued it and I left it on the stove, you can see how it's become a little bit lumpier because the chocolate has overheated. So just make sure that you take off the chocolate off the heat so that you don't end up with that lumpy finish. If you want to give it as a gift to somebody, you obviously want it to be as presentable as possible. Now you might think that ginger and chocolate is a bit of an odd combination, but if you love ginger or spice, you will love these. It's got that gorgeous chocolate coating on the outside. When you bite into it, you're going to have a little bit of a crunch with that burst of crystallized ginger in the middle. And we've also put in that ginger powder in the chocolate, in the ganache itself. So you're going to have hints throughout of that beautiful ginger flavor. So next we're going to be making the chocolate and hazelnut truffles. So just like we did with the ginger, we're going to start off with 150 grams of chopped up vegan chocolate and 7 tablespoons of coconut milk. Warm that up and then pour it over once it's simmered. So after 4 minutes, we just give it a gentle stir until everything's incorporated. And as I said before, if you have any lumps left, any chocolate bits left at the end, just pop it over a double boiler and continue to stir until it's all dissolved. This is what we want it to look like once it's ready to go in the fridge. Thick, glossy, and lump-free. The ganache has been sitting in the fridge now for a couple of hours, so it's nice and thick. So what we do from there is just spoon out. You can use a small ice cream scoop if you have one of those, but you can just use a normal spoon, that's fine as well. So we just flatten it out. We just grab a hazelnut, pop it in the middle. Press it so that it's nice and even. Now we'll roll it up in some crushed up hazelnuts. Make sure you get all of those big chunks sticking to it. And we can always reshape the ball once we've coated it completely. But you've got to work fast with it because the ganache will start to soften and it'll be a little bit trickier to work with over time. So if that happens, just pop it back in the fridge for it to firm up and you can go again. Chocolate and hazelnut is a classic combination. I actually really like that I can also source my ingredients locally and buy some beautiful Tasmanian hazelnuts to add to this, which you obviously can't control when you buy them store-bought. So it's a really beautiful way of gifting this to other people that also love nuts and chocolate combinations. And just continue this process until you've used up all of the ganache. Now this recipe in particular will make you 10 truffles, but you can double or triple it if you like. Next we're going to be making the Raisin pistachio truffles. So we'll start off again with 150 grams of dark chopped up chocolate. And then we're going to heat up this time only 5 tablespoons of coconut milk. We're going to be using as well 2 tablespoons of rose water. So altogether that'll equal 7 tablespoons of liquid. So that's why we've reduced the coconut milk so that we can make way for a little bit of that rose water to add in as well. Once the coconut milk has come to a gentle simmer, just pour that over the chocolate. After 4 minutes, we just give this a good stir until all of the chocolate's incorporated. If the chocolate's not completely melting, you just pop it over a double boiler. We might have to do that with this one because there was less coconut milk to melt it. So if you're going to use this over a double boiler, just make sure that you have a heat-proof bowl. Now I've just put the little bit of water in the bottom of the saucepan. You don't want any water touching the bottom of the bowl, so just make sure that it's low enough, but we want that steam coming through. So we just give this a stir, keep stirring it, and that heat from underneath will melt the rest of the chocolate. Once the chocolate has all melted and incorporated, you'll add in now the 2 tablespoons of rose water. Give that a good stir in. And we want to make sure that the chocolate's not too hot once we add the rose water in, because otherwise it'll split the chocolate. So just fold it in gently until it's all combined. Next we fold in 3 tablespoons of chopped up pistachios, which is 20 grams. Make sure you scrape down the sides well so that as much of the chocolate's in the center before you pop it into the fridge to set for 2 hours. So the ganache has been sitting in the fridge for a couple of hours and it's nice and set now, so we're ready to roll. But what I've done is, to get that beautiful green coat on the outside from the pistachios, is I've just powdered them. So I've just put them in my little spice grinder, and so you get this beautiful sort of powder out of it. And we're going to use that to roll. What you can also do is what I did with the hazelnut ones. You can do the chunkier sort of version as well. So it's completely up to you, but I just wanted something a little bit different, so I've gone for the powdered version. You can also, if you don't have a spice grinder, just pop it into your food processor and just keep blending until you get that beautiful sort of floury consistency. Using a spoon, we just grab a spoonful. It's going to be quite firm, and you've got those lovely pieces of pistachio in there as well. Roll that up into a nice ball. It will be quite firm, but we want to work with it quickly because it does start to melt a little bit. So if it starts to melt too much, just pop it into the fridge for a couple of minutes, but that normally doesn't happen until sort of towards the end. Now we're just going to roll it in this gorgeous green, coat it well, and we can reshape it again. Now what I found is that I won't go back to rolling it in the palm of my hand because it's covered in the chocolate. And if you put it back there, what you'll end up is with a coat of chocolate on the outside. So I use my tips of my fingers to keep it nice and green. We're just going to continue that process now until we use up all of that lovely ganache. It'll make 10 truffles for you. If you love Turkish Delight, you're going to love this one. It has those beautiful notes of refreshing rose in it, as well as the chunks of pistachio that give it that nice crunch. And I mean, just the color of it on the outside, who can resist? And lastly, we're going to be making my favorite, the rum and raisin truffles. So to start off with, we're going to chop some raisins. So I've done that already. And we're going to put 1 tablespoon of rum extract. So if you've got rum, just normal rum, you can use that instead, but increase it to 2 tablespoons. And if you use normal rum, you will have to reduce the amount of coconut milk by 1 tablespoon. So we're going to be using 6 tablespoons of coconut milk, and you'll have to then swap it down to only 5. So we'll just give that a gentle stir, so that all of those raisins get immersed in as much of that rum as possible, and we'll leave that to the side while we do the chocolate. I've got the 6 tablespoons of coconut milk in here, which is more of a cream, the one that I have, but that's fine, you can use either. Now we'll just bring that to a simmer, and then we'll pour it over the 150 grams of chocolate like we did with all of the other ones. After 4 minutes, just give it a gentle stir, and all of the chocolate should be melted by now. If you mix this and the chocolate's still not incorporating, I showed you how you can do it over a double boiler in the rose and pistachio one, so just check that back if you are just watching this specific recipe. Even though we used only 1 tablespoon, you can really smell it, so don't worry, it'll still be quite strong. So now we're just going to add the rum and raisin mix into the chocolate, and give that a stir until it's combined. Once we've done that, we'll just pop it into the fridge to set for a couple of hours, and then we're ready to mold our truffles. This is what the ganache should look like. It'll be nice and thick. If you can't wait just a couple of hours, you can actually leave it in your fridge overnight. That doesn't matter at all. It'll be easy to work with either way. So we just want to scoop out about a tablespoon of the mix. And we're going to be rolling it into a ball. Work with it quickly so that it doesn't melt between your hands too much. I can smell that rum. And then we're going to keep it simple with this one. We're just going to roll it in some cacao powder, just to add that little bit of bitterness to finish off a beautifully rich truffle. Now you can coat this in chocolate as well, like I did with the ginger ones, but I actually like to keep it quite simple. We just repeat this process until all of the ganache is used, and that'll make about 10 truffles. And what I like to do is completely cover it and then dust off that excess bit of cacao powder. Look at those beautiful layers of raisins in there. You can see them poking out. And they're coated in rum, so they'll be really nice. If you love the classic rum balls, you will also love these. I've got a recipe for that on the website as well. I'll link to it in the description below, but these ones with the raisins just add that little bit extra luxury, and that melted chocolate, it's just divine. Now that I've showed you how to make 4 different types of vegan truffles, you can go and experiment in the kitchen. The options are honestly endless. I hope that you like this video, and if you did, we would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. All of the recipes will be over on our website, and which I'll link to in the description below, or you can pop over to theminimalistvegan.com. Until next time, happy cooking.
Yeah, I'm recording you right now.
Are we gonna make some truffles? Are you gonna make some truffles? Not very excited, are you? Because you can't eat them.